The Discovery. In the frigid depths of space, an alien ship glided silently through the void. Its sleek, silver hull gleamed in the starlight as it approached a desolate planet on the fringes of the Zeta Quadrant. Aboard the vessel, a team of Zaxian archaeologists prepared to make landfall. Dr. Zara Kin, the expedition leader, peered at the barren world through the ship's viewports. Her large, azure eyes widened as she noticed an anomalous energy reading emanating from the planet's surface. Captain Vortex, are you seeing this? The ship's captain, a tall Zaxian with iridescent green scales, nodded. It appears to be an artificial structure of some kind. Scans indicated predates even our oldest records. As the ship touched down near the energy source, Zara and her team donned their protective gear and disembarked. They approached a small, half-buried outpost that appeared to have been untouched for millennia. Inside, they discovered advanced technology far beyond anything they had encountered. At the heart of the outpost, encased in a crystalline stasis pod, lay a humanoid figure. Zara gasped as she realized what they had found. By the stars, it can't be. A human. The pod hissed open as Zara and her team carefully extracted the human. To their amazement, the individual showed signs of life. They quickly transported the pod back to their ship, eager to unravel the mystery of this ancient being. Hours later, in the ship's medical bay, the human stirred. Zara watched in awe as a pair of piercing green eyes fluttered open, settling on her alien visage. The human, a woman with fiery red hair and a commanding presence, spoke in a language the Zaxians' translators couldn't decipher. Zara activated a neural link, allowing for direct communication. Greetings. I am Dr. Zara Kin of the Zaxian Interstellar Alliance. You are safe aboard our vessel. Can you understand me? The woman nodded, her brow furrowed in confusion. Yes, I understand. I am General Ilara Vaughn of the United Earth Federation. What happened? Where am I? Zara's heart raced as she realized the significance of Ilara's words. The United Earth Federation had been a legendary civilization, one that vanished from the galactic stage over 10,000 years ago. General Vaughn, I know this may come as a shock, but you have been in cryogenic stasis for a very long time. The Earth you knew is gone, and humanity. Humanity is now extinct. Ilara's eyes widened in disbelief, her face paling as the weight of Zara's words sank in. She pushed herself up on the medical bed, her body weak from millennia of disuse. Extinct? How is that possible? Zara placed a comforting hand on Ilara's shoulder, her voice gentle. It is a long story, one that we have pieced together from fragments of ancient records. After your time, humanity expanded across the stars, establishing a vast, prosperous empire, but they were not alone. She went on to explain the rise of the Zorgax, a vicious, conquering race that swept across the galaxy like a plague. The human empire, for all its might, had been unprepared for the Zorgax's relentless onslaught. In a desperate bid for survival, they had sent out ships filled with cryogenically frozen individuals, hoping that someday, somewhere, humanity might rise again. But the Zorgax had been thorough in their extermination. They hunted down every last human outpost and colony, wiping them from existence. In the end, only the Zaxian Interstellar Alliance, a federation of peaceful alien races, had managed to resist the Zorgax's advance. Now, with the discovery of Ilara, a spark of hope had been rekindled. The Zaxians knew of humanity's legendary reputation as warriors and strategists. If Ilara could be convinced to aid them, perhaps the Alliance could finally turn the tide against the Zorgax. Ilara listened to Zara's tale in silence, her eyes haunted by the revelation of her species' ultimate fate. When Zara finished, Ilara spoke, her voice heavy with grief and determination. I may be the last of my kind, but I will not let humanity's legacy fade into oblivion. If you need my help to fight these Zorgax, then I will stand with you. Zara bowed her head in gratitude, her eyes glistening with emotion. Thank you, General Vaughn. Your courage and resolve are a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Together, we will face this dark hour and forge a brighter future for all the peoples of the galaxy." As the alien ship set a course for the heart of the Alliance, Ilara gazed out at the unfamiliar stars, her mind reeling from the weight of her new reality. She knew that the battles ahead would test her like never before, but she was ready to face them head-on. For in this strange new universe, she was the last ember of humanity's once brilliant flame, and she would burn brightly against the darkness that threatened to consume them all. The Galactic Crisis. As the Zaxian ship traversed the vast expanse of space, Ilara Vaughn stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the unfamiliar constellations that stretched out before her. The weight of her new reality settled heavily upon her shoulders, a constant reminder of the daunting task that lay ahead. Captain Vortex approached Ilara, his iridescent scales shimmering under the soft light of the ship's interior. "General Vaughn, we will be arriving at the Alliance headquarters on Zaros Prime within the next solar cycle. The Council is eager to meet with you." Ilara nodded, her gaze never wavering from the viewport. "I'm eager to learn more about this conflict with the Zorgax. I need to understand what we're up against if I'm going to be of any help." Vortex tapped a few commands on a nearby console, and a holographic display flickered to life in the center of the bridge. It showed a map of the galaxy, with vast swaths of territory marked in an ominous red hue. "The Zorgax have been relentless in their conquest," Vortex explained, gesturing to the map. "They have consumed countless worlds, enslaving or exterminating the populations they encounter. Their technology is advanced, their numbers vast, and their tactics ruthless." Ilara studied the map, her brow furrowed in concentration. "And the Alliance? How have you managed to resist them?" "With great difficulty," Vortex admitted. "Our combined military forces have managed to hold the line, but barely. We've lost many brave soldiers and civilians in the process. The Zorgax seem to have an endless supply of ships and warriors, while our resources dwindle with each passing year." Dr. Zara Kin, who had been standing nearby, spoke up. "That's why your discovery has given us so much hope, General Vaughn. The tales of humanity's prowess in war are legendary. If you can help us find a way to turn the tide against the Zorgax, we may yet have a chance." Ilara felt the weight of their expectations settling upon her. She knew that she was just one woman, a relic from a bygone age, but she also knew that she had a duty to fulfill. Her species may have been gone, but their legacy lived on through her. "I'll do everything in my power to help you," she vowed. "But I'll need to learn more about your technology, your tactics, and your allies if I'm going to be effective." As the ship approached Zaros Prime, Ilara gazed out at the vibrant green and blue world that served as the heart of the Alliance. She could see dozens of ships of various shapes and sizes orbiting the planet, a testament to the diversity of the species that had banded together against the Zorgax threat. Upon landing, Ilara was greeted by a delegation of Alliance leaders, each representing a different member species. There were the tall, willowy Phylaxians, the stout, fur-covered Brogans, and the shimmering crystalline Khazari, among others. Ilara marveled at the array of alien features and forms, so different from the human standards she was accustomed to. In the days that followed, Ilara immersed herself in the Alliance's history and culture, learning all she could about their struggle against the Zorgax. She studied their technology, their battle tactics, and their chain of command, seeking weaknesses and opportunities that could be exploited. But even as she worked tirelessly to devise a strategy, the Zorgax threat loomed ever closer. Reports flooded in of new worlds falling under their sway, of entire civilizations being wiped out or enslaved. The Alliance was losing ground, and time was running out. In a somber meeting of the Alliance Council, Ilara stood before the assembled leaders, her voice grave. "The Zorgax are winning because they are unified in their purpose," she said. "They fight as one, with a singular goal: domination. If we are to have any hope of defeating them, we must do the same." She went on to outline a bold plan, one that would require the full cooperation and coordination of every Alliance member species. It was a gamble, but one that Ilara believed was their only chance at survival. As the council deliberated, Ilara gazed out at the stars once more, her thoughts turning to the countless lives that hung in the balance. She knew that the road ahead would be long and perilous, but she also knew that she would stop at nothing to see the Zorgak's threat eliminated. For in this strange new universe, she was the last defender of humanity's legacy, and she would fight to her last breath to ensure that it endured. The fate of the galaxy rested on the outcome of this war, and Ilara Vaughn was determined to see it through to the bitter end. She had been given a second chance at life, and she would not let it go to waste. The Zorgaks may have been a formidable foe, but they had never faced an adversary quite like her before, and she would show them the true meaning of human resilience and determination. Forging the new alliance. In the weeks following her arrival on Zaros Prime, Ilara Vaughn threw herself into the task of preparing the alliance for the battles to come. She worked closely with the military leaders of each member species, learning the intricacies of their tactics and technologies, and adapting them to suit her own strategic vision. But the process was not without its challenges. Many of the Alliance commanders were skeptical of Ilara's methods, which often involved unconventional and risky maneuvers that went against their established doctrines. Some even questioned whether a lone human, no matter how legendary her reputation, could truly make a difference against the Zorgak's juggernaut. Ilara, however, remained undaunted. She knew that the key to victory lay not in playing it safe, but in taking bold and decisive action. And so she pushed her allies to think outside the box, to embrace new ways of fighting that would catch the Zorgaks off guard and exploit their weaknesses. One of her most controversial proposals involved the creation of a new type of strike team, one that would be composed of the best and brightest warriors from each Alliance species. These teams would be small, agile, and highly specialized, capable of infiltrating Zorgak strongholds and wreaking havoc behind enemy lines. At first, the idea was met with resistance. Many of the Alliance leaders balked at the notion of sending their most valuable assets on what they saw as suicide missions. But Ilara was persistent, and she eventually won them over with a combination of persuasive arguments and sheer force of will. As the first strike teams began to take shape, Ilara handpicked the most promising candidates from each species, putting them through a grueling training regimen that pushed them to their physical and mental limits. She drilled them in human combat tactics, teaching them how to think on their feet and adapt to rapidly changing situations. Among the recruits was a young Phylaxian named Zephyr, whose lightning-fast reflexes and uncanny agility had caught Ilara's eye. Under her tutelage, Zephyr blossomed into a formidable warrior, his natural abilities honed to a razor's edge by human training techniques. Another standout was a grizzled Bruggan named Gruck, whose strength and durability were matched only by his unwavering loyalty to the cause. Ilara saw in him a kindred spirit, a soldier who would stop at nothing to protect his comrades and defeat his enemies. As the strike teams began to take on their first missions, Ilara watched with a mixture of pride and apprehension. She knew that their success or failure could very well determine the outcome of the war and the fate of the entire galaxy. But even as she focused on the military aspects of the conflict, Ilara found herself grappling with more personal challenges as well. The weight of her own loss, the knowledge that she was the last of her kind, gnawed at her constantly. She struggled to find a sense of purpose and belonging in this alien universe, where everything she had once known and loved was long gone. It was Dr. Zara Kin who eventually helped her to find some measure of peace. The Zaxian scientist had become a close friend and confidant, and she seemed to understand the depths of Ilara's grief in a way that few others could. "Your people may be gone, Ilara," Zara said one evening as they sat together in the ship's observation lounge, gazing out at the stars. "But their legacy lives on through you, and in the Alliance, you have a chance to build something new, something that honors their memory and carries their spirit forward." Ilara nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I know," she said softly, "and I'm grateful for that. But it's hard, Zara. It's hard to let go of the past, to accept that everything I once knew is gone forever." Zara placed a comforting hand on Ilara's shoulder. "I can only imagine the pain you must feel," she said. "But you are not alone, Ilara. You have friends here, people who care about you and believe in you. And together, we will build a future worth fighting for." As the Alliance prepared for the battles to come, Ilara drew strength from Zara's words. She knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but she also knew that she had a new family now, a new purpose, and she would fight with everything she had to protect them, and to ensure that the sacrifices of her own people had not been in vain. The Zorgax may have been a fearsome enemy, but they had never faced a force quite like the one that Ilara Vaughn was forging. A force that combined the best of human ingenuity and determination with the unique strengths and abilities of a dozen alien races. A force that would stop at nothing to defend the freedom and dignity of all sentient beings, no matter the cost. And as Ilara looked out at the stars once more, she felt a flicker of hope burning within her. Hope for a future where the Zorgax threat was nothing more than a distant memory, and where the peoples of the galaxy could live in peace and prosperity, united by the bonds of friendship and common purpose. It was a future worth fighting for, and Ilara Vaughn was ready to lead the charge. Turning the tide. As the newly forged strike teams began to take the fight to the Zorgax, the tide of the war slowly began to turn. Under Ilara Vaughn's leadership, these small, highly trained units launched daring raids on key enemy targets, disrupting supply lines, destroying communications hubs, and sowing chaos and confusion behind Zorgax lines. At first, the Zorgax were caught off guard by these unconventional tactics. They were used to facing large traditional military forces, not the lightning-fast, hit-and-run strikes that Ilara's teams employed. But as the raids continued, the Zorgax began to adapt, deploying more troops to defend their critical infrastructure and hunting the strike teams with a vengeance. Ilara knew that they couldn't keep up this pace forever. Sooner or later, the Zorgax would find a way to neutralize their advantage, and the Alliance needed a more decisive victory to truly turn the tide of the war. The opportunity came when Alliance intelligence intercepted a Zorgax communication that revealed the location of a key military installation deep within enemy territory. The facility was heavily fortified and guarded by some of the Zorgax's most elite troops, but it was also a vital hub for their logistical network. If they could take it out, it would deal a crippling blow to the Zorgax war machine. Ilara immediately began to plan the assault, bringing together a hand-picked team of her best and most experienced warriors. Among them were Zephyr and Grok, who had proven themselves time and again in the heat of battle. The plan was audacious, even by Ilara's standards. It called for a small infiltration team to penetrate the facility's defenses and plant a series of explosive charges at key structural points. Meanwhile, a larger force would engage the Zorgax defenders, drawing their attention away from the infiltrators. It was a risky gambit, but Ilara was confident in her team's abilities. And so, under the cover of darkness, they launched their attack. The battle was fierce and bloody, with the Zorgax defenders fighting tooth and nail to repel the Alliance assault. But Ilara's troops were relentless, pushing forward with a determination born of desperation and a refusal to accept defeat. Inside the facility, the infiltration team faced their own challenges. The Zorgax security systems were formidable, and they were forced to improvise and adapt on the fly to avoid detection. But with Zephyr's lightning-fast reflexes and Grok's brute strength, they managed to plant the charges and make their escape just as the main Alliance force broke through the outer defenses. The resulting explosion was devastating, tearing through the heart of the Zorgax installation and reducing it to rubble in a matter of seconds. The shockwave could be felt for miles around, a testament to the power of the Alliance's resolve. The loss of the facility was a major blow to the Zorgax, one that they would not easily recover from. But Ilara knew that their true strength lay not in any single installation or weapon, but in the fanatical devotion of their warriors and the ruthless efficiency of their war machine. And so, even as the Alliance celebrated their victory, Ilara was already planning for the next phase of the campaign. She knew that they would need to keep the pressure on, to strike at the Zorgax wherever and whenever they could, if they hoped to truly turn the tide of the war. But even as she focused on the larger strategic picture, Ilara never lost sight of the individual lives that hung in the balance. She made a point of getting to know each and every one of her soldiers, to understand their fears and their hopes, their strengths and their weaknesses. And in doing so, she forged bonds of trust and loyalty that went beyond mere military discipline. Her troops would follow her into the very jaws of hell itself, not because she was their commanding officer, but because they believed in her vision of a galaxy free from the tyranny of the Zorgax. It was a vision that Ilara held onto with every fiber of her being, even as the war dragged on and the casualties mounted. She knew that the price of freedom was high, that it was paid in blood and sacrifice and untold suffering. But she also knew that it was a price worth paying for the sake of all the peoples of the galaxy, human and alien alike. And so, as the Alliance forces regrouped and prepared for their next move, Ilara Vaughn stood tall and proud at the head of her army, a beacon of hope in the darkness of war. She had come a long way from the frozen relic she had once been, had learned to find a new purpose and a new family in this strange and wondrous universe. And she would not rest until that universe was safe, until the Zorgax threat was vanquished once and for all. For she was Ilara Vaughn, the last defender of humanity, the scourge of the Zorgax, and the brightest hope of the Interstellar Alliance. And she would not be denied. The final stand. As the war against the Zorgax reached its crescendo, Ilara Vaughn knew that the time had come for one final decisive battle. The Alliance had made significant gains in recent months, thanks in no small part to the tireless efforts of her strike teams and the bravery of her soldiers. But the Zorgax were far from defeated, and they still possessed a vast armada that could turn the tide of the war if left unchecked. Ilara's plan was as daring as it was desperate. She proposed to lure the bulk of the Zorgax fleet into a trap, using a series of feints and diversionary attacks to draw them away from their main supply lines. Once they were committed, the Alliance fleet would jump in from hyperspace and engage them in a pitched battle, with the goal of destroying as many of their ships as possible and crippling their ability to wage war. It was a risky gambit, one that would require every ship and every soldier the Alliance could muster. But Ilara was convinced that it was their best chance at ending the war once and for all, and she was determined to see it through. As the Alliance fleet assembled in a remote star system, Ilara stood on the bridge of her flagship, the ISS Endeavour, and surveyed the armada before her. Ships of every size and configuration stretched out as far as the eye could see, a testament to the unity and determination of the allied species. At her side stood her most trusted lieutenants, including Zephyr and Gruk, who had been with her since the beginning of the war. They were battle-hardened veterans now, their armor scared and their eyes haunted by the horrors they had witnessed. But they were also fiercely loyal to Ilara and to the cause they served, and they would follow her to the very end. As the fleet made its final preparations, Ilara addressed her troops over the comm system, her voice steady and resolute. "Soldiers of the Alliance," she began, "we stand on the brink of history. Today, we have the chance to strike a blow against the Zorgax that will resonate throughout the galaxy, to show them once and for all that we will not bow to their tyranny." She paused for a moment, letting her words sink in. "I know that many of you are afraid," she continued. "I know that the odds we face are daunting. But I also know that each and every one of you has the courage and the strength to rise to this challenge, to fight for the freedom and the future of all sentient beings." As she spoke, Ilara could feel the energy and the determination of her troops swelling around her, a palpable force that filled the air. "Remember what we are fighting for," she urged them. "Remember the sacrifices that have been made, the lives that have been lost. And remember that as long as we stand together, as long as we hold fast to our convictions and our compassion, there is nothing in this universe that can defeat us." With those final words, Ilara gave the order to commence the attack. The Alliance fleet leaped forward, emerging from hyperspace in a blaze of light and fury. The Zorgax, caught off guard by the sudden assault, scrambled to mount a defense, but it was too late. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships clashed in a maelstrom of fire and destruction, their hulls rent by explosions, and their crews consumed by the vacuum of space. Ilara was in the thick of it, her flagship darting and weaving through the chaos, its weapons blazing as it took on the Zorgax's mightiest warships. Beside her, Zephyr and Grok fought with a savage fury, their skills honed to a razor's edge by years of combat. They were a force to be reckoned with, a living embodiment of the Alliance's indomitable spirit. As the battle raged on, it became clear that the Zorgax were losing ground. Their ships were being picked off one by one, their formations crumbling under the relentless onslaught of the Alliance fleet. But they fought on with a fanatical zeal, determined to take as many of their enemies with them as they could. In the end, it was Ilara herself who struck the decisive blow. With a daring maneuver, she brought the Endeavor in close to the Zorgax flagship, a monstrous vessel bristling with weapons. In a moment of clarity, she saw her chance, a tiny weakness in the ship's defenses, a vulnerability that could be exploited. Without hesitation, she gave the order to fire, pouring every ounce of the Endeavor's firepower into that one critical spot. For a moment, time seemed to stand still, as if the entire universe was holding its breath. And then, with a blinding flash of light, the Zorgax flagship exploded, its hull shattering into a million pieces. The shockwave rippled outward, catching the nearby Zorgax ships in its wake and tearing them apart like paper. It was over. The Zorgax fleet was in ruins, its survivors fleeing in disarray. The Alliance had won. As the cheers of her troops filled the comm channels, Ilara sagged back in her chair, a wave of exhaustion and relief washing over her. They had done it. Against all odds, they had emerged victorious. But even as she savored the moment of triumph, Ilara knew that the true work was just beginning. The Zorgax may have been defeated, but the scars of the war would linger for generations. It would take time and effort and compassion to heal the wounds that had been inflicted, to build a new and better future for all the peoples of the galaxy. But Ilara was ready for the challenge. She had found her place in this universe, had forged bonds of friendship and purpose that would last a lifetime. And she knew that as long as she had her comrades by her side, as long as the flame of hope and unity continued to burn bright, there was nothing they could not achieve. And so, as the Alliance fleet began the long journey home, Ilara Vaughn looked out at the stars once more, a smile on her face, and a sense of peace in her heart. She had come so far from the frozen relic she had once been, had learned so much about herself and the infinite wonders of the cosmos. And she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever new adventures and trials awaited her, she would face them with the same courage and determination that had brought her this far. For she was Ilara Vaughn, the last defender of humanity, the brightest hope of the Alliance. And she would never stop fighting for the future she believed in, for the sake of all the lives that depended on her. It was a future worth fighting for, and fight for it she would, until her last breath and beyond.